we need to talk about Dartmoor. Now, I know lots of wild camping YouTubers have featured the recent Supreme Court ruling on Dartmoor, and I think from a wild camping point of view, it's nothing other than a victory, and we're all very happy. But I think there are other considerations as well that we've got to take into account. First, a bit of background. For people that didn't... So just a very brief background. Alex Darwell, who is a hedge fund manager, he and his family moved to and bought some of Dartmoor, and he believed that wild campers were ruining his land and also picnickers. Anyway, he basically took it to the High Court against the Dartmoor National Park Authority, stating that in the 1985 Dartmoor Commons Act 10.1, where it says the public can arrive on horseback or foot, obviously not mountain bike for some reason, they can carry out recreational activities, and that recreational activities does not include camping. So anyway, he won, and wild camping was banned on Dartmoor. It then went to the Court of Appeal, where the Dartmoor National Park Authority won that particular case. So wild camping was allowed again. So more recently, he took it to the Supreme Court. This is the final word on this. Supreme Court's as high as you can go, and they have dismissed the case. So luckily for us, common sense has prevailed, and now we can wild camp on Dartmoor. But what do we need to do now? Was that a brand new Land Rover back there, smashed in the hedge? Now, the Darwells own an area called Stawell Moor in Cornwall, which is actually a relatively small part of Dartmoor in the grand scale of things. But I think what us wild campers were most worried about was the precedent that this would set to the other landowners as well. Dartmoor is the only place in the whole of England and Wales that it's actually legal to wild camp, and that was a big worry. Now, before I start bashing Alex Darwell and his family, it's important to note that the case was between them and the Dartmoor National Park Authority, rather than them versus the public. However, the National Park Authority were representing the public, and the argument was that the public wild camping was causing fire damage, etc., to his area of land. Now, there may be other motives. I know there's local MPs that may have got involved, and he might have had ulterior motives related to hunting, etc., etc. But the point is this: he wanted to take control of the wild camping in the area that he owns. So I don't know how that would pan out. Maybe it was a register and you register your name if you want to camp. Maybe we'd end up having to pay to camp, or maybe it's just a complete cover to take control and ban camping altogether. We will never know. Okay, so as I said, Darwell only owns Stawell Moor. Maybe if he'd done better at school, he'd own a bigger piece of land, but never mind. What do the actual wording of the Supreme Court, what was actually read out? So it was said that the public want to wild camp to enjoy the natural environment. As stewards of land in their ownership of Stawell Moor, the Darwells are concerned by the risk of fire and damage caused to the landscape by those who camp irresponsibly. They are not motivated to stop camping completely. They prefer to have camping on their land on their terms, rather than people just turning up and wild camping. My problem with that is that could be open to any kind of interpretation and could also still lead to a full ban on wild camping. Yeah, for just £3,000 you can come on one of our private wild camps with pheasant shooting. Again, I just make camping videos really. I didn't really want to have to make a video about this, but I think that most wild camping YouTubers who have featured Dartmoor probably got a duty of care to talk about this one. So yeah, that's why I'm making this. Anyway, let's have another look at the Supreme Court ruling. Okay, so in this case, the rights of the public are to be found in the Dartmoor Commons Act 1985, which I mentioned not long ago. This makes Dartmoor different to other national parks because it permits certain recreational activities. The Act states that the public have a right of access by foot or horse to the commons for the purpose of open air recreation. So the wording obviously came down to whether or not wild camping is open air recreation. And that's what basically made the Supreme Court overrule the case. So basically, so long as we look after the land, we don't have a problem. Yeah, just to clarify, I did pick it up. So on one hand, you could explain there's a moral to this story. You move to Dartmoor, that's what you've got to deal with. If you move to a place near Heathrow or Silverstone, you shouldn't really be in a position to complain about the noise. Thing is, I'm reading this at the moment, the rights, and I think that our duty of care is greater than ever. This is a precious thing that we have, and we're all worried that it's going to disappear. It's more important than ever that we need to support Dartmoor National Park Authority. Remember, it's them who are defending this against the Darwells. So again, looking down this. They have their own rule set. You're not allowed drones, for example, in Dartmoor. Fair enough. It's, people like their peace. But I think we need to support the National Park Authority more than ever. And, maybe go a step further. Take home people's litter, And if you see fly campers, people who camp leaving behind litter and tents, point them out, report them. Because I'm really, really worried that we are going to be perceived as not doing our bit. In a former life, I was a cyclist, and we all get tarnished with the same brush. As a drone pilot, I do as well. And I really don't want wild camping to go that way. I think at the moment it's something that's booming, and it's helping a lot of people. And Dartmoor serves a really, really important purpose for that. And just in case you haven't noticed, it's quite obvious someone is lying to you as well. More on that in a bit. Case in point. See, I'll collect that on the way back. This is how narrow this is. This is how fragile this is. The National Park Authority, Dartmoor. I don't know. I don't think they've got much to gain from ruling in favour of the wild campers, really. It's not in their financial interest as such. So, they could have changed their mind at any time. The High Court originally outlawed it as well, so to speak, until that was overturned. So this is what we're dealing with, and litter like that does not help. Really doesn't help at all. Idiots. What if the ruling had gone the other way though? Who of us would have been retaliatory wild campers, or who of us would have complied? Would it have opened up a huge division? Would it have tarred our image? Everyone hates wild campers on social media. I don't like to think about it. I'm just glad that in the end justice was done. In my dim and distant past, I actually worked with fund managers, and they were a fairly pleasant bunch. And the thing is, they have incredible financial resources, and they don't commit money to anything they don't think they can win. Much as I don't agree with the Darwells at all, I don't know them. I'll be honest with you, I don't know them. There's probably conspiracies involved. I think now is the time that we do not want to ruffle any feathers. We want to get on with all and prove what nice people us wild campers are, and celebrate in the ruling, the dismissal, and go out there and enjoy wild camping and not create any problems at all. So I think it was Novice Wild Camper, YouTuber. I'll put his link down in the description. He said something like, as people, we don't own the land, we belong to the land. And if you see it that way round, That's why we can wild camp. That's why we can enjoy the land. If we're not there to enjoy it, who is? But let's get a sense check here, shall we? Darwell's land, it's not being damaged by wild campers. Most of the litter you see is in the laybys. If you go up into the hills of Dartmoor, you don't see a lot of litter. A 1.5 kilogram nylon tent is not going to damage a half-ton horse or cow. If people don't like fires, which they really shouldn't, then there's no damage to be done. And to be perfectly honest with you, it's not going to stop the people that do that anyway. If you have a motorway and people are speeding down it, and you therefore call for the speed restriction to go from 70 down to 60, it's not going to stop that 10-year-old BMW M3 shooting past at 130 miles an hour, is it? So there's been a lot of time, money and emotion wasted on this, and it is now great that it's a close. But who's lying to you? So earlier on I mentioned someone was lying to you, but who? Is it Darwell? Does he just want a massive pheasant hunting area? Is it the High Court, Supreme Court? Is it the National Park Authority? No, it's none of those at all. The person who's lying to you is me. I'm not in Dartmoor at all. I'm actually high in the Berkshire Downs. I will be in Dartmoor next week for a wild camp, so tune into that. Until then, let's have a look at the Berkshire Downs.